So this is the fluff before the good stuff. We're still waiting for it to go live. I'm going to share it in the group.
Webinar is now streaming live on Facebook.
I guess that means we've made it.
That's how you know you've made it.
Yep. All
when
4
you're live.
followers I have. They're going to love you. We might get 3 out of 4. Let me share this into the group, which is Profit Control and Freedom. You know what I do? I do this thing where I want all caps, and instead of hitting caps lock, I just hold shift. And it's exhausting.
For everything.
Yeah.
For the entire paragraph.
My pinky got tired, so I used caps lock this time. Oh, I can take you. Cool.
Money.
So we are here. We are live. We're waiting for people to drop in. And Julie Davis Sawyer says, hey.
Hey, Julie.
And we're going to hit it. Is that one of yours?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, well, hi, Julie. I don't know you either. So welcome. And we're going to hit this. And I'm going to wait for a few people to get in because I really want them to hear this part.
Thing that everybody wants to talk about, but nobody actually wants to talk about.
Everybody wants it solved.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to. It's one of those things, right? It's one of these things that one of the questions I ask business owners when they have this product, they're like this, oh, this is going to change people's lives, right? The question then becomes, well, what do people have to admit to themselves in order to cross that line and become a client? And this is one of those things where you have to admit something's a little off, right?
I feel like it's the case with all mindset stuff, and that's why a lot of people want to avoid it. Because what happens if we look in the mirror and go, oh man, I have something that I could improve? Well, then that means that we're saying something's wrong. But just create space.
What's a big reason why, right? And I'm going to do an intro in a minute, but I'm just killing time till people get on. That's a big reason why the people you work with,
they're amazing.
Same people I work with, because they're growth minded, right? It's not even necessarily that, hey, I'm broken. It's that I want to get better.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing, let me introduce you real quick. This is Malorie.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, Malorie has the Abundantly Clear podcast and just launched a Abundantly Clear money mindset course. And I actually put the link in the description. Don't go there yet, though, because you're going to want to listen to Malorie talk about this, get an idea of what she does and why it's so important. But I have, obviously, if you're watching, you probably know who I am. You're in the group. We work with high-performing entrepreneurs in my network, which is my mastermind, and the Velocity method, where we build systems operations. So these are serious business owners. These are people that want to get to high 6, high 7, 8, 9 figures. And the reason I wanted to bring Malorie on is because we work with the mechanical, right? The business mechanics, the nuts and bolts, what's the sales process, what's the fulfillment process, yada, 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 right? What methods, what tactics. And even when the mechanics are sorted out, people still get, for lack of a better word, they get stuck. And like clockwork, I think, how many clients do we share? Like 5, 6, 7?
Yeah. I think, it's probably about 6.
Yeah. So
running through my head. Yeah.
We'll say 6 clients, members of ours get stuck. And typically I recommend, hey, go talk to Malorie. And like clockwork, after they have a conversation with you or 2 or 3, and they enroll in your program, they just take off to another level. And it's not the mechanics of their business, right? Like, it's not, everything is good on paper, but they're still stuck. And then they talk to you and they just disappear. They don't talk to me for a couple of weeks because they're out.
Easiest clients ever on your part, then.
Yeah, I love sending people to you because I'm just like, I don't know, go talk to Malorie. And then when they run into a mechanical issue, they come back, we fix it. But a lot of times the issue is not mechanical. Like if you're a 7-figure business owner or high six, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I want. I want to, and if you're in the vault or even if you're just watching, you can go to Malorie's course that just launched and get a $200 discount right now. I'll get that out of the way so we don't have to worry about a pitch later. Discount code is VAULT, all capitals, 200. But I want you to tell me when I send people to you and they're stuck, and then freaking 2-3 weeks later, they're experiencing this exponential growth across in all aspects of their life. What the hell are you doing to them? Walk us through those conversations and walk us through the most common things, because I have a feeling a lot of people watching right now are investing in courses that are full of tactics, marketing, sales, and that's not what they need.
Yeah.
So walk me through what you're doing with these people, because I only see the results and it's phenomenal.
So really what it starts out in the first I'd say between, it's like it goes in phases, but the first phase, the first 0 to sometimes 6 weeks, we look at removing all of the junk. What is all of the junk that this person cannot see that is really blinding them to be able to have the behavior that allows them to step up into their business like they really want to show up and have the success on the other end that they're looking for, whether that's monetary, whether they're looking to make more money, or whether they're looking to not feel as stressed out, or whether they're looking for something personally that they've been avoiding that they can't seem to figure out why. We kind of go in there and uncover the junk, right? Because we have to get rid of the junk in order to show up like we truly want to show up. And this is one of those reasons that the marketing courses and the continuous efforts of how many things can I buy and learn and spit out, it's not working for everyone. Because when we don't get rid of the junk, we're just adding on these layers to ourselves, but we're still carrying all that crap with us, and it's showing up in our business.
So define real quick, because I think there's some ambiguity in what people would consider junk, right? So what is junk, and how do we know? What are some telltale signs of like, oh yeah, I'm carrying some junk?
One of the biggest things that I think is real easy yes or no. Are you going to bed at night completely stressed out about your business, no matter what type of money you're bringing in? You could be bringing in 7 figures. You could be bringing in $3,000 a month, but are you going to bed at night freaking out about your business? And are you waking up in the morning before you get out of bed freaking out about your business? That's one of the biggest telltale signs. You're expending too much energy stressing about your business. So stress is the biggest key element. When people come to me, they're usually stressed. Now there's different levels of that stress. Sometimes it's I've created a wildly successful business and I'm miserable. And sometimes it's I have this lingering residual stress and this lack of fulfillment, not really sure what's going on, but I know there's probably something that I want to take ownership for to change. So stress is the biggest indicator of that. Now, does that answer your first question?
Yes. Yeah, I think specifically 2 things come to mind of people that I've talked to that figured this out way too late. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me, Adam Markell, who's brilliant, and he does really, really well. Mm-hmm. So he's making multiple millions of dollars, and he would get out of bed in the morning and he remembers his feet hitting the floor, he had a marble floor, beautiful house, right? And he's just said I just immediately anxiety attack, mm-hmm. Oh, for no reason, mechanically he makes millions of dollars, and so that's such and it's a sign that we being us entrepreneurs and kind of stubborn, we're pathologically stubborn usually. We ignore it. We're just going to plow through it, or more money will help, or if I work harder, it'll help, or whatever.
It's supposed to be this way. All entrepreneurs feel like this because it's about business growth. It's normal. Yeah.
But it's not, right?
Yeah.
And I'll let you get into it, but it's not supposed to, it doesn't have to feel this way. And I see it over and over when my clients work with you and they're like, It's actually like, it's not that
Not
hard.
that hard.
Yeah. They almost feel guilty. Like we run into this, like, I feel guilty that I'm making so much money and not working that hard.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So you remove that junk, and then you have all these new things that start to show up. And then that's kind of where you might hit another layer of problems. And that's exactly one that you just hit on. Well, I've got all this stuff going on, and I'm not really working that hard. Am I supposed to feel guilty about this now?
Mm-hmm.
So the mind is just one of those things that continuously perpetuates all these different stories about what we're doing and why we're doing it and what it means. And because of that, it is the controller of the experiences that we're having. And it's like the most simple thing in the world, but entrepreneurs every single day are continuously avoiding this process and this thing that is running their business. They're looking at their business as an outside thing that doesn't really have to do with them. But yet, if you think about what it means to either A, be self-employed, or B, be an entrepreneur that has a team and has a business, you're the leader in both of those roles. So it's up to you, essentially, what happens from there on. Whether you're doing it solo or whether you have 3 other people that you're working with, you're creating the avenue for success. So if you're bringing all that stress, if you're going into your business every single day with those stories, with that stress, it's totally connected to all these other things that are being avoided. But we've normalized, the online world and society, it's really both, have normalized what it means to be busy, and that being busy actually is an identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you run into resistance with people that are busy? And I implore you, if you're watching this live or replay, drop a comment, or if you're listening, to think about this as I ask Malorie. Do you find people have a lot of complaints about being busy, but then have resistance to giving up the busyness because it is their identity? Like, if I'm not busy, then what am I, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was hosting a workshop locally actually it was a week ago today, almost to the hour. And that was one of the questions that came up. Someone asked me at the end, well, how am I supposed to make sure that I'm not busy if I have all of these things going on? And I started taking him through this question series of what his particular situation looked like and what all of it meant. And it really came down to, he wasn't making his rules in his life. He was letting everything else dictate it. He was letting the scarcity of, if I have a boundary in place with a client, then I'm going to lose that client. And there's no other client that will ever show up. So it's these scarcity stories that we put into being busy. If I step away from my business, then it's going to fall apart. If I'm not busy, then I'm no longer worthy. If I'm not doing something, then I must not be of value. And we're getting time and value very confused. It's a whole, other kind of story along with this. We're really confusing what time and value mean, and the roles that both of those things play into our life and our business. Because as far as I'm concerned, business and life are the same thing if you're an entrepreneur. There's really not a way to dictate and separate those two pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a key, because I'm curious too. So the biggest breakthrough I ever had was I overheard somebody say that we, as entrepreneurs, we like to say that we're all about the easy money, but we're not, right? Because we actually if I make $100,000 in a month, my tendency is to do enough stuff to feel like I've done enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's actually somebody that does something similar. But he writes copy for Agora. And he said, when I started asking clients, do you want me to work really hard or do you want to win?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You want me to deliver value or do you want me to do a lot of work? And I started applying that same filter. It was huge for me, is do you want this result or do you want me to just work really, really hard? And it really helped me kind of sort through that. But when somebody comes in and on paper, we see this all the time. They might be on a wait list. They got leads coming in, mm-hmm. and they're still terrified, like they're still in a place of scarcity.
Yeah.
How do you work them through that?
Figuring out first things first, figuring out what the root of that is. Because if you look at developmental psychology, all of our beliefs were basically programmed between 0 and 7 years old. So somewhere in there, there's probably some kind of story that hasn't been untangled yet that's really creating this sense of control and security that this person, woman or man, doesn't matter, who is experiencing this need of everything's going to fall apart if I don't show up. And when we look at developmental psychology, it's not necessarily that this means that this child at the time went through some crazy traumatic childhood or life. It could really be something super, super simple that had a platform to create some type of belief like that. So first, we really look at what's the root of this? And that's what I mean when I'm talking about phase one, is really looking at what are all the stories that are going on and what needs to be deprogrammed so that we can figure out what can work for you and what you truly believe. Because a lot of our behaviors that we live on every single day, we haven't questioned them. We haven't given ourselves an opportunity to go, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I waking up every day freaking out about my business? Why could this be happening? Because the online world and society has just created this sense of busy being an identity. So instead of figuring out what our own identity is, we're just taking that and adapting to busy as an identity and rolling with it. And it's creating all of these blockers and growth and expansion and all of these avenues of really simple, easy things that people could be doing in their business to add on a lot of money, or getting completely blindsided because of this identity of busy.
And that's really, really powerful. The whole, like, I think of, and, you know, it shows up everywhere in life, right? Even if it's like just people that were exposed to heavy sexism or racism when they were young, they still have that initial reaction potentially, right? But it's recognizing, taking the time to recognize your initial reaction and like, why do I have this reaction? What led me to this? So what you do, I'm curious, because I've actually have not worked with you. Everybody, like I said, all I know is people go see you, then next time I talk to them, they've just experienced ridiculous growth or over the moon.
But they're the ones that are creating it. Well, so let's just be clear about that.
Well, is that I'm curious, is it similar to like a goal-oriented psychotherapy, right? Like cognitive behavior therapy? Is it are there action steps? Are there short-term goals? Like,
yeah, so the first part is a little bit of cognitive dissonance, cognitive behavior, like let's look at what's going on. And that comes from just lots of certifications that I've done and looking at, you know, what are the connections? How's the brain working? Why do we think the way we think? But then one of the things that I really love that is a little bit on the other end of the spectrum, and that's looking at like, what are your strengths? That's not so much back end stuff. That's not so much looking at why do you think the way you think. That's really looking and honing in at, who are you? What are you amazing at? What are you avoiding in your business? What does your schedule look like? What are the things that you could be doing that you're not doing? What's going to make this easier? Like really thinking and stepping back and looking at business growth and checking in where they might not be seeing opportunity. That's why I honestly think, and this could be, I think having someone else on your team, this isn't just me in that category, but having someone else on your team helps to be able to see, what are you not seeing that I am? And hey, what about this? And what if we did it that way? What if you did it this way? What about this opportunity? And that allows the person to think a little bit outside of the box, because we can't catch our own blinders.
Right. And so I'm curious, because I'm really also using this as an opportunity just to fully understand the process, because we talk all the time, but never about what you actually do. What is the, so
because I just assumed that you knew.
As I have an idea, I know the result But as entrepreneurs, we have or like visionaries, right? We have this thing where we want to understand things and we want to know more things. And we have this, I call it the intention intervention gap, what we know we should be doing and what we're actually doing. And so as you help them discover these things, or maybe you encourage them to get somebody else that sees things they don't, how do you get them to actually modify their behavior in a way, even if it's just accountability, but how do you get them or help them modify their behavior that starts to close that gap between what you've helped them discover and what they're doing right now?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think it goes back to not giving advice, honestly, because when we start to intake all of these things about people telling us what we should or shouldn't be doing, we don't feel completely empowered by that. So if you have someone saying like, we'll just go do X, well then sometimes, not every time, because that's certainly we can't say that it's not okay to give advice. Sometimes it's great to give advice. But if all of your business decisions are being made from somebody else that's just giving you advice, then you're not utilizing your own resource too to be creative and to have empowered thinking and to figure out what is it that I really want to actually be doing. So part of that process, it's like phase one, removing the junk, removing the stress. Okay, you're not stressed anymore. Now let's look at phase two. Where is the opportunity, whether it's more profit or fulfillment or all these areas of your life that you haven't gotten a chance to pay attention to because you've been so freaking stressed out? Let's clean all that up so you wake up every day and feel amazing. And that looks like question after question after question of connecting the dots that they're not seeing and helping them come to the conclusions themselves, so that it's not somebody else just saying, writing down on a list, go do this thing. And I have a huge, that being said, like I have a very large, expansive toolbox of things that I send people and resources that I give people to keep them on track, you know, with certain things that we're talking about, depending on the person. That's why it's so custom. I have not figured out how to replicate this in like a group setting or anything like that, because everybody's dealing with different problems, but then the other side of that is also everybody has different growth opportunity. Everybody has different gifts, different zones of genius. So something that might be amazing for one person to do in their business is not going to be the best suggestion for somebody else. And I use the word suggestion, but really it's uncovering that with themselves. Where do I need to go? What is my vision? Am I really building the business that I want to be building? Or am I just doing what everybody's telling me that I need to be doing? And that's why I'm doing it. So it's more about asking why questions and not how questions. Because most of the people I work with, they know how to do everything already. They already have established businesses. They already know the marketing process. They know what they could be or should be doing, but not asking why is removing them from that ability to connect with the intention of the action that they really want to take.
Yeah. And that's probably why there's so much synergy with our members and people that work with you, because we're all about like trying to get you aligned in your business pursuits with your unique disposition. And so few programs or consultants or coaches or whatever even consider that, like, you know, what's there is no cookie cutter, this is best.
Yeah.
It's a process of like, and I love that you lead people to their own conclusions, because closing that intention intervention gap, what we always talk about is belief. Right? Like if you have 100% belief that this is going to absolutely produce the outcome you want, you're going to do it.
Yeah, because it changes the behavior.
And the belief is so much stronger when, like, the conclusions I come to myself, obviously I believe them way more than what anybody else tells me. So
yeah.
It's
not that asking, you know, it's not that asking someone for advice is wrong, but it's just, is that blocking you from really using your own inner wisdom? Because I think everybody has that inner wisdom, no matter what you want to call it. Everybody's got that intuitiveness inside of them that sometimes they're avoiding because they're too caught up in the overwhelm of, am I going to make the right decision? You know, that's one of the biggest things that I help people with, is removing the root of the black and white thinking of there's a right or wrong, there's abundance or scarcity, there's this or that. I've either succeeded or I've failed. And it's really breaking down all of these little stories that are creating that I'm either putting this in this box or I'm putting it in that box, because that's all just an illusion in itself.
Yeah, that gray area. People don't like to play there, but there's a lot of there's a lot of money to be made there. There's a lot of happiness to be found there. So, you know, I mean, you know me well enough. I love to play in the gray. And I think you and I, if you've never seen me or Mallory in a Facebook comment conversation, has to be the most maddening thing, because I see you do it too, right? Always respond
Not
with
on
a question.
purpose.
It's natural, right? You just respond with a question. Like, what are you actually asking? And people get so frustrated because they just want a freaking answer. And
But that actually, it's interesting that you just said that, because I tell people in the beginning when they hire me, it's not always going to be this like rainbows and butterflies experience that every single time you get on a call, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is the most amazing conversation I ever had in my life. If there's resistance, it's showing up because you're trying to learn something. You're trying to uncover something. You're trying to let go of like some old bullshit story you've been carrying around with you for 30 years, or you're resisting a level of growth. So that need of like, just give me an answer, that's the exact area where the magic is. That's the exact thing where someone can go inside and go, take a deep breath and take myself through the question series and kind of figure out like, what is the conclusion that I actually want to come to with this? Because we're not really looking for somebody else to give us an answer. I mean, granted, sometimes we are. There's certain things where we're like, you're the expert in this, just tell me what you think I should do. But more often than not, we really feel better when we try and figure it out ourselves.
yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about that. I was gonna start to close this down, but I want to talk about something you just said, because we talked about it today here in this office. And that is when you are resisting, like breaking through the ceiling, right? We have these ceilings, and we talked about it today. One of your clients is a good friend and a partner of mine, and ran into something similar, and you work with him, right? But we also have clients where there's like a clear path to just blowing through their current revenue. And they continue to just find ways like to hit the same goal, but like in more complicated ways. Right. Like there's just a ceiling. And what do you think the cause of that is? And there might be many, but if anybody's listening and they find that they just keep hitting the same ceiling and either starting over or doing it again, or just complicate, you know, what are the questions they need to ask themselves, and what are some steps they can take right now?
Yeah. So buy the course. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Go buy the course. You don't know this yet. You don't know this, but your URL is so long, and if anybody listening might miss it. So I bought you abundantlyclearcourse.com, and it's live.
Oh, wow.
So go to abundantlyclearcourse.com. And
the URL shouldn't have been that long if it was on my WordPress, if it was embedded.
Well, it's Mallory. People will spell Mallory wrong.
You're right, they will. All right, I'm not questioning it. You know. See, I'm taking.
There you go. You came to that conclusion yourself, though. So ceilings. Talk about.
Okay, yeah, ceilings with money specifically. That's a really good one. So we've got these different parts of us that are connected to our money relationship. One of them is, how much money can I make? How much money do I give myself the ability to make? The other one is, how much money do I give myself the ability to keep? Because that's a whole nother ballgame in itself. People that make a lot of money, that they never have any money in their bank accounts. That's a problem. So just because you're making a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean that there's not some type of issue going on with your relationship with money. Those two things really can break down if you kind of look at those and look at the behaviors, because belief is what projects behavior. Then we can look at what are the beliefs that could be going on. The glass ceiling thing specifically, with how much money I'm giving myself permission to make, usually doesn't always, it's not black and white, but oftentimes I'd say about 70% of the time it goes back to a self-worth thing, which can be super confusing, because a lot of people that I work with, the worth things, they're pretty dialed in with that, but there's still some other stuff that they might be experiencing and they're not sure why it's showing up. So the worth piece, really looking at, am I telling myself that my standards are only to whatever this mark is. Let's use $100,000, for example, because that's just a number that everybody can compute easily.
Mm-hmm.
Am I telling myself that I'm only capable and I'm only worthy and my value is only congruent to making $100,000 a year? Is that where, and when did I decide that? Like really, truly asking yourself, when did I decide that that was my cap? When did I decide this? And sometimes beliefs are created much later. We're continuously creating beliefs. It's not just always between 0 and 7. So you could have had some experience that led to you deciding, well, my sister, my brother, they make $100,000 a year and I don't want to compromise my relationship with them. So I'm going to cap myself out at this 100K, because if I did, that would mean that I'm inhibiting and creating problems in my relationship and my family. And we've got all this kind of stuff. I see a lot of really strange beliefs sometimes that come up if you grew up in a religious background, and there's nothing wrong with religion at all. I want to make sure I make that clear. But if you have that kind of background in history, sometimes the beliefs that you created that you might not even realize are there, that might not even be what they were trying to teach you, you interpreted them a little bit weird and they're showing up in your business. So there's the things that are really key, I think, to look at first are, what type of household did I grow up in when it came to money? What was my mom's relationship with money and what was my dad's relationship with money? Was my mom always stressed about money, even if we had it? If that was the case, are there some beliefs that my mom had that I decided about my own relationship with money that I haven't unraveled or questioned yet? Am I just running on this same mom, dad, this is how they looked at money, and that's what I've decided about myself too? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And the family one has actually come out at a mastermind. They said, what, talk to somebody, the fertility queen, you know who I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? Said, I'm not going to name names, but if you're in our circle, you know. And so, you know, when I go home, my mom and my sister, they make fun of me, and they just like, all you care about is money. And realize that because we know how gifted she is.
Mm-hmm.
And what was holding her back was her family was judging her for being successful.
Yeah.
That's a huge block. And
brilliant
it was
woman doing really amazing work on the planet.
And she was going to business masterminds trying to fix the mechanics. And no matter how we fix the mechanics, it would not work because that wasn't the limiting factor, right? That wasn't the bottleneck there. It was the judgment from the family.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stuff shows up all the time. You see it sometimes too, like in partners, like relationships, man, woman stuff, like I don't want to make more than my husband, or I don't want to make more than my wife. Like just different types of things that show up in that realm too. A lot of siblings, like a lot of relationships with siblings about, if I make more money than my siblings, what will they think of me? Because there is a little bit of that, you know, just misunderstanding sometimes of people that aren't entrepreneurs as to what is everybody doing online, and is it all just a joke?
Right.
And I think every entrepreneur has had to have those conversations with their family. If you haven't, you're just avoided it, or it hasn't happened yet, of what is your business and how do you run it online and how does all that make sense? So of course, if your parents have a little bit of a weird relationship with money, or anybody in your family, and then you tack that on to not understanding your business, you do what? Then yeah, you're going to get some of that projection.
What's the let's go, because what's going to happen here is
I actually don't know what's going to happen here, so you have to
yeah, well, I'm telling you, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to give everybody listening, watching, the tools, right? So here's the questions you need to ask yourself, and maybe here's some things you need to think about, right? Just give the basics, and then we're gonna go dark off of Facebook because this is live streaming.
Okay.
And if you're in the vault for our members or the network, you can come on and have a little bit of Q&A time with Malorie, and there's a link in the vault right now. So what are the very simple, like, okay, I'm running into resistance from my family. How do I handle that? Is that just a matter of communicating, or And then two, what are the questions we need to sit and ask ourselves after we listen to this tonight at home or whatever?
Yeah. So the how in this is really just don't worry about it. But how do you shift your state of being so that you don't worry about it? I'll give you 3 questions you can ask yourself to try and do some of your own shifting. Know that this is like just a little piece of this, but if you take this and actually ask yourself these questions, you'll allow yourself to think differently than you might have up until this point about all this. The first piece to look at is what belief is showing up. So if I'm so worried about my family judging me about the money that I make, the belief that's probably showing up is that I'm a bad person, right? Underneath there somewhere, there's probably a belief of I'm not a good person because I make money. And that's why I'm actually scared and feeling this experience and fear of judgment. So identify the belief. That's like the first piece. Be really honest with yourself. That's where the vulnerability comes in, to share our fears. Most people just want to put the fears in the closet and walk away from it. But if you just recognize and say, this is the shit that's showing up, you have the ability to change it. So be vulnerable. What is the belief that's showing up? The second piece is asking yourself, how did I form this belief? So what experience did you go through? How did you form the belief that you've came to up until this point in your life? How did you form the belief? Not that your mom and dad are mad at you, because that's the experience, but how did you form the belief that making money means you're a bad person? Or when other people's emotions, when you're feeling and seeing other people's emotions towards you, that means that you are a bad person. So how did you form this belief? And then the third part, really simply, is to ask yourself, are there any situations or evidence where this belief doesn't make sense or apply? Because a lot of times we've only applied these beliefs to ourselves, which means that I would think it's bad that I make money, but I don't look at you and say, oh, you're a bad person because you make money. So we battle with our beliefs on our head because we're running them on solo most of the time. And asking yourself that third part of, what do I have to disprove this? You know, where did this come from? Truly, like, where did this come from? What do I have to disprove this? What evidence do I have that this is not real? Nick makes a lot of money. He's not a bad person. Okay, I'm going to write that down so that I know. And my brain knows, because your prefrontal cortex stops working if you write things. So you're writing your thoughts out and taking yourself through this process will help reprogram what's going on in your brain.
Awesome. So do that. And if you're in the group, or even if you just listen to the podcast, I implore you to share your experience. You can come on you can leave a comment on iTunes, drop in Profit Control and Freedom group, share your experience. And
that's the fourth piece. Then you have to decide what your new belief is. If making money doesn't mean you're a bad person, what is the belief that you actually believe? And
share that too. Awesome. So drop a comment if that was useful. We got a lot of people watching. Drop a comment, give it a share. Awesome. If you feel like, hey, entrepreneur friends need this, give it a share. And what we're going to do is we're going to go dark, but what I want to do one more time, you can go, there's a link. It's way too long, and Malorie's name. On that, just so you guys know, like that's a very simple question series. The course that I designed is to take you deep into figuring out, like, what is the root of my money belief stress, and a deep embedded exercise and work to take yourself through breaking all of that down. So it's not a bunch of information. There is information in it, but you're not going to have 15 hours of just a bunch of new crap to listen to. It's actually designed to help you change that. Yeah. And I know right now it's $397, which is insane. You're going to get an exponential return on that based on the results I've seen with multiple people. And there is a code, all capital, Vault 200. You get $200 off. So it's $197, which is insane. The return's huge. It's going to be huge if you consume and then apply. That is actually insane. You're saying 197 right now. I'm like, oh my God, for what's in that. Yep. But that's a benefit of being here. It's good. I want it to change people's lives. I really do, because we're getting all this information about how to make more money, and we're not doing the work that we really truly need to be doing to show up differently to our business. My favorite, because I extrapolate this to everything. It was completely different context, but Jeff, obviously, Jeff, you work with Jeff, he's my partner in the network and the mastermind. And he said this thing about looking out the window and the mirror. Right. And so a lot of times the context was, when things go right, we look in the mirror and give ourselves credit. When things go wrong, we look out the window of somebody to blame when we should swap it. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing here is like, if you already know business, you've been in it for a while, you understand it. Instead of looking out the window, trying to find what's out there that can help you, do like something like what Malorie just walked through. It's just looking in the mirror. Why? Like, who am I? What do I believe? And it's a really powerful thing. And for $197, just go buy it. And we're going to go dark. We are out of here. No more public.
Bye, guys.
Stop live.